Okay, welcome. Happy Friday. Friday. Yes, of course it's Friday because we're doing our Game Master community wrap up. So, welcome everyone. Hopefully, no audio or video difficulties today. Somebody is doing a little hedging, mowing, something outside. Probably it's not coming through on the mic. Hopefully, it's annoying me though. But I don't think there's anything I can do about it. Just gonna have to grin and bear it, as it were. I don't have any. I don't have any show notes. Nothing to discuss channel wise. So I'm just gonna get to the good stuff, shall we? Maybe I'll try positioning my face somewhere else. Ooh, let's try that. Oh no, I didn't like that one because I was my own logo. Let's see that one. That one. I guess I'll be back in this corner. Maybe I should just move. I'll probably have to move my logo around. I'll have to fiddle faddle with the interface. Here we are. As is our wont, this is my particular, what do they call them? Multi-Reddit that I have for this setup. RPG Roundup. I've linked to it in the show notes if you want to follow it, excuse me, for the stream or follow it later on. It's there for you. I'm using new. When we were just doing the OSR Roundup, I used Hot, which I think worked well for one subreddit, but I think I believe, I don't know how the Reddit algorithms and things work, but I believe when doing multiple subreddits in this kind of multi-Reddit setup with the hot tab, I remember we did it the first stream that we were using this particular multi-Reddit. I was getting stuff from that was too all over the place. I'm not sure how they reconcile all the different kind of hot ratings across subreddits. It didn't seem to work very well, so I've gone to new. Hey, Brian Smith, welcome. And the reason why I set up this whole multi-Reddit is I wanted to just spread our wings a little bit, just get outside of just OSR. I think there's a lot of other subreddits with a lot of good things into it that might be helpful regardless of kind of what you're playing, and just kind of broaden our horizons a bit. Let us see. Let us salad where we can go. Flags of the Gremlins. That's great. Is this a solid idea? This one might be good. This one's posted to DM Academy. Is this a solid idea? Posted by I Am the Boom 5359. I'm running a campaign about a mission to receive a Lich's phylactery, and the quote-unquote antagonists were each hired years ago to protect the phylactery. They function as rivals and foils for the party, constantly fighting, but I was struggling with a boss fight. There are 4 items the party needs for the phylactery, 3 keys to the vault, and the map for the keys. Ironically enough, there are 4 rivals. I wanted to do a showdown where only one shows up and fights the party. But how do I explain one being a lot more powerful one day than not the next? That's when it struck me. Have the rival use their familiar or use wild shape into a beast or something along these lines. Here's an example. Exodus, the Furbolg, always has a dark leather cloak on. Rain or shine, anywhere, everywhere. Before the party grabs the map from the first dungeon, Exodus shows up and takes off his cloak, going on a little speech before running up a ladder to a higher area. Unbeknownst to the party, Exodus's cloak is a cloaker, which I buffed for the fight. I want to ask you, does it seem like a good idea for the fight? All right, so there's probably a few things here. So the one is something that can come up. Hey, Ian, something that can come up when you are trying to do these kind of narrative things. And I think that I'm the Boom 5359 pretty much elegantly summed it up, right? What do you do because you want to make one fight a boss fight, and then later on or before that, they're not, that this NPC seems to kind of bounce up power levels? Well, the Furbolg Exodus didn't seem that strong before, but now it's a boss fight, so now he's all amped up. And then later on, maybe they runs away after the boss fight and they're back to being just one of the 4 flunkies of this group, and now suddenly they're reduced again. How does that work? Well, it's going to feel really cheap to the players if that really is it. If it's just in the fiction, suddenly they're more powerful, and then later on they're powered down without any kind of explanation. Yeah, that's going to feel kind of weak. Like, why was this person a rollover, a pushover when they fought them 2 sessions ago? Now there's some kind of juggernaut, and now suddenly they're back down to being a nobody again. But the great thing is, in a game like Dungeons and Dragons, is we have magic items, and you can give them something that they got, something gave them to. Maybe whoever they work for, these folks, they didn't give a name, the Lich or something, gives them something. It's a one-time only deal, right? Kate, they have this one-time magic item, they drink it, and for an hour, a day, whatever, they have this kind of ability, or they're powered up in some way, which you can make obvious, and I think you should make obvious. Let's say, example, Exodus the Furbolg, when they see him when he's kind of in his amped up mode, his eyes are glowing, he's got some weird aura, he's taller than he was before, he's got marks on his skin, his skin's gone black, red, green, whatever. He's lost all his hair, he's grown hair, whatever it is that can happen that sets you off. That like, oh, this is different. Maybe it's intelligence now. He can't speak. He's just savage as he's going on this rampage. All this kind of stuff. All these sorts of things can work in terms of the fiction, because these things happen. Sure, the Lich is a powerful spell caster, so yeah, you could imagine that they cast a spell on this person, or maybe had this item that they were saving, but now the party is getting too close, so they have to use one of their resources. It should be consequential for everybody. It's consequential for the party in terms of now they're fighting this amped up villain. It's consequential for the antagonist group because now they've lost that item. The cloaker as a cloak, I guess that's fine. I'd want to have some thinking in mind of how this relationship with the cloaker walking around as somebody's cloak works. You can also have a lot of fun with that, but that's the kind of thing I'd like to have sort of set up so that maybe they see something, like they're in the tavern and the Furbolg's there with his group, and you see the Furbolg kind of slip some food from his plate and kind of pushes harm behind. And you think maybe he's putting it in a pocket, but really what he's doing is feeding the cloaker. Even just little bits like that can help a lot. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it kind of helps. But yeah, in terms of, sure, he's got this one resource and now he's spending it. That's fine, because that's not really any different than the other things. In terms of the cloaker being amped up, I guess it's okay too. I mean, has your party fought cloakers before? If they haven't fought them before, they don't know how strong they are, and this could just be one that is strong. But yeah, you don't want to just amp up this one bad guy for a fight without there being some kind of in-game reasoning given. Brian Smith says, the villain preset dialogue cutscene thing never has worked as a DM or player in my experience. That's true too. Brian Smith also says, the cloaker can snatch a stray animal for a snack. Yeah, the cloaker versus someone's pet. Well, probably the cloaker would win. Would be a moment, right? If someone's pet got disappeared. Kind of like that moment in Jaws when at the beginning on the beach, towards the beginning anyway, where the one guy's playing fetch with his dog and he throws he's throwing the stick into the water, the dog brings it back and throws the stick into the water, the dog doesn't come back. This is English breakfast tea for the working man. I do agree though, just as an aside, yes, when you do that, I'm going to give a speech, it doesn't work. Now, people will say, I've seen this in various places, that players should let these speeches happen because they might get some information and because you're going to roll initiative anyway. And this is true. There is not necessarily an advantage to the players interrupting the speech, because everybody knows you're going to fight. If I'm the bad guy, I'm in the room and I know the party's going to fight me, and I'm basically giving my pre-battle speech. Does interrupting my speech to, attack me, the magic goes fireball. You're just going to roll initiative. I'm going to roll initiative. So you might as well just let me talk, I guess. I mean, that's in the meta. That's true. But of course, players, and they're excited. I mean, the part of it is, though, is that, yes, that's true from a meta standpoint. The players, if that's what they care about, if it's really just about efficiency of information, and some folks will put it down to almost allowing showmanship. The players should allow the GM to have their showmanship. Let the GM have their moment in the sun. Okay, I guess. I don't know. As a GM, you get all kinds of moments in the sun that you want. And I think there are actually a lot more efficient, better, and more interesting ways to reveal information about the bad guy than giving the speech. But sure, they could do that. But on the flip side of that, if your party's into the game, they're going to be excited. They know the fight's coming, and they don't want. And the thing is that oftentimes I think also the GMs will cheat. They'll do something like this. Like what this guy has written down, basically. What is he? Exodus shows up, takes off his cloak, goes on a little speech, and runs up the ladder. So basically, the GM is expecting the party to sit there while this NPC makes multiple actions and not respond. And I'm thinking, as soon as they drop their cloak, like it's on. Like, I'm not going to let the bad guy just do some kind of cloak and then start a speech. Like, no, I'm saying actually when he starts to take off his cloak, I'm thinking initiative. you have to be, remember as a GM, not to try to, while a party might want to give you your speech, in this case, don't bake in the fact that they're going to get these compound actions that just they're expected the party not to respond to, and don't bake that in because that's how you're going to feel cheated too. Like in the way he has this written up, if this guy shows up, takes off the cloak, goes on a speech, and runs up a ladder, and as the party we don't get to respond anywhere along the way, I'm going to feel like, all right, this was a bunch of bunk, So play it fair, which means the guy shows up, I would have him roll initiative right away, and then depending on what everybody does, then maybe combat starts. Like I will tell my players that, okay, I'm going to roll initiative right now, not because you're necessarily going to attack, but because timing is important. And if Exodus gets to go first, he can take off his cloak and start going on and do his speech. Whatever, maybe if we're playing, I guess, 5th edition, he could take off his cloak. If he wins initiative, then he can do all those things. He can take off, he can drop his cloak, and then start going up the ladder, assuming no attacks of opportunity or whatnot, and then making a speech as he goes. But if he loses initiative, well, maybe the party doesn't give him a chance to speak. Exodus opens his mouth and a fireball is stuck in it. Hey, Perkins. Welcome. Yeah, Brian Smith says it's like the DM taking 3 turns. Yeah. I mean, I guess in 5th edition, or really in most games, this probably would be 1 or 2 turns, right? Because I guess, well, actually, no, it's at least 2, right? Shows up, which means he's entering from somewhere, so that's a move. And then you could say taking off the cloak is free action, so fine. And then speech. Most people will give at least some speechifying as a free action. So yeah, Exodus showing up, taking off his cloak, going on the speech. That's turn 1. And this is assuming we're doing whatever he shows up in the corridor or opens up the door, whatever it is kind of part of that movement. And then and then running up the ladder, the higher area would be turn 2, some kind of dash action. So that's it. So depending on your system, that's probably minimum 2 turns. So you need to allow your party to react to both of the turns. And I would say initiative when he shows up. So as long as you don't bake in that stuff, and as long as you give some kind of fictional reasoning why these things are happening, that makes sense that the party might even actually be able to do something about. And it does communicate information about who they're fighting and their resources and all this stuff. And then it should count. Like if they had the special cloak with the cloaker in it and they spend it, if you will, in this encounter, then they shouldn't have that resource. Should be accounted for. It should be like they lost a resource. They made a gamble and they lost. And and not just, well, he's just reloaded for the next time. No, that it should cost him something. There should be some consequence on the side of this faction. Brian Smith says, raw, all of 6 seconds, not much of speech. Yeah, I mean, usually people go easy on this, we'll go easy on the speech time. But yes, I mean, we might need to figure that out. That's why it's also good probably to think of other ways to have and not do the long speech anyway. Think of some other way to communicate. Perkins says, I tend to run through situations in my mind during prep, but it never goes as planned, so I avoid holding on to a preset situation. Let the dice and player actions drive things forward in the moment. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the wiser course of action, is not to preset, yeah. So if I was going to run this encounter and this was my idea, I would say, yeah, there's Exodus. He's got his cloaker cloak, and he's going to try to drop it and run. That's what he wants to do. He wants to come, let the cloaker do its thing. The thing is too, is I'm not sure this is even the best spot for him. This is one of those things also, like, is this guy in this space just because the GM wants a big boss encounter at the bottom of a dungeon? I'm thinking cloakers, they're best in stealth where they can do something. I'm thinking if he's got this cloaker cloak, that's something I would be deploying when the party's resting, they're in the dark, that's at night, something like that. Can I, you have one cloaker, can I isolate a party member and get them in an alley outside the tavern where it's dark, and then the cloaker descends on them? This is not really a smart play from this NPC's point of view. If this is the NPC's plan, you can just see behind it that there's just this mechanical things of, oh, we're at the bottom of the dungeon or wherever, and oh, there's supposed to be a boss encounter here, so here's the boss encounter. I would really think about where would Exodus, if he could, he's picking his moment. He can, because not that he knows something the party doesn't know, but he knows, okay, I need to try to get the party off the scent or break them up or do something. I have some ability, unless it's just an emergency that I get them in the dungeon at this moment. It's not the best spot. And I would really think about, if this is his resource, he's got this cloaker cloak that he can deploy pretty much one time. Well, one time if the cloaker loses the fight, potentially multiple times if the cloaker is successful. What's the best use of this cloak magic item? Essentially, monster thing. This is not it. But this is where they want the encounter, so this is where it is. But yeah, I totally agree. I would want to just put him in the mix and then see what happens with dice, and because the party's gonna probably mess this thing up from moment one. Michael Fraker says, I think it's just a cheesy trope to begin with. How many times are we yelling at our TVs for the heroes to just attack the monologuing villain? Yes, well, like I mentioned, in 5th edition, or really in any edition when you kind of have this initiative thing, once both parties are aware the other one's going to attack, it's just initiative. So I do get the impulse of, at least from the GM side, of just let me speechify. Just let me give you my speech that I prepared. I've written it up. It's cool. I just want to give it to you. But I've never really felt that was a good excuse, reason. I don't know. My thing is just be more creative. There are tons of ways you can have these get some of the monologuing done that doesn't force you or your players to act in kind of a weird, like Michael Frager said, kind of Hollywood way. So just do that instead. Frederick Work says speech right on the wall with explosive runes. Yeah. Brian Smith says, dude shows up, drops a cloak, and runs off. I feel like, what just happened? Or if this dude is always with his cloak and suspiciously shows up without one, look out as it swoops in during the speech. Yeah, there's a bunch of fun stuff. I think that cloak actually is pretty cool as a thing, but you want to use it when it really makes sense. And this doesn't make sense. I'm wondering I think what's happened is this person is coming from, this is the problem with this kind of design. This person has designed a dungeon, parties going through it, needs an encounter at the end, and then thinks about, well, I want them to fight some kind of big boss. Who can this big boss be that makes sense? We have this antagonist faction. Okay, so one of them is going to be the thing. It's not organic. None of this is really organic, and so you're just kind of sticking. You're just you're taking the square peg and you're going to jam it in that round hole. And if some of the sides of the square peg peel off, or the hole becomes distorted, it doesn't matter. You're putting this. You're just going to you're going to take that mallet and you're going to keep hammering at that square peg until it is jammed securely into the round hole. Whereas an organic approach would be just have the dungeon be what it is, and then okay, maybe you can use tables for this, dice, other things to say, well, where is Exodus? Exodus is on their tail, so maybe it'll show up somewhere, maybe it'll show up somewhere else. Kind of what makes sense, right? But I think unfortunately a lot of dungeons, a lot of adventures, this is how folks design them, either for their own games or even I think sometimes when they publish them, is they kind of need this meta thing for this moment, and so they just kind of jam something in there. And sure, you can run it, and sure, the party will kind of roll with it, but it's not the best use of the thing you've got. Like this Exodus and his cloak is great, but it's almost accidentally cool because the guy just was looking at, well, he always wears a cloak, so maybe I turn the cloak into a monster, and then what kind of monster might that be? And oh, it's a cloaker. I mean, that's actually really cool. I wish they just thought of that and used it in a more organic way and not just like, oh, jam it in here because it's time for a boss fight. Perkins says, I would go with something more like a smoke bomb or flashbang that the NPC plans to use to avoid combat. Yeah, I think the thing is, Perkins, is that the combat is the point. And that's maybe part of the problem, is this NPC doesn't necessarily have a reason to fight. Maybe he does. Maybe he wants to get, the party's got, they need 3 keys to the vault, and now they've captured the 3rd key, so he needs to get it off of them. But it doesn't really explain, well, why here? Why now? Why does this guy need to fight? Can he not just try to steal the key? Can he not try to destroy the key? I don't know. It's kind of one of those funny things. You have this phylactery that's in a vault. I don't know if a lich never needs to maintain their phylactery, right? So why would you even have keys to a vault and a map to the keys? Why wouldn't you just flush all that stuff down a chasm, send it into the elemental plane of fire, and just seal the thing up as best you can and get rid of everything? I'm not sure, but that is the situation. I mean, there would be no adventure if that stuff didn't happen. So there was that. But yes, I agree. I mean, the combat is not necessarily the thing here, but they're working from the meta part back to the fiction. They're starting with, I have a dungeon, I need a combat, and then they're kind of mashing everything in to fit. Right? So all right, the OP has been thoroughly dunked on. I'm not trying, I'm not trying to dunk on them. I think that's they're different kinds of, it's just different maybe philosophies of design. And we got to keep in mind, DM Academy, I really like a lot of their stuff. And I think people ask thoughtful questions. I think people give thoughtful replies in that subreddit. It is 5th edition focused. So I think given that, we see a lot of their things are managed, or a lot of the input and output of that subreddit is sort of in the sort of design schemes of modern D&D. So a lot of stuff in kind of working in narratives and working in kind of this building this sort of meta thing, right? As opposed to, I think, the way that maybe Perkins, I think certainly the way I like the designs, I think try to think more in a kind of organic thing and hey, stuff will happen and I'm just going to put the pieces in play. Whereas I think a lot of the design that folks for the modern game are kind of all about these kind of moments and the sort of arc leading to these moments, which can work perfectly well. It can work great, but it can cause some strange bedfellows and can cause some cognitive dissonance at time to time if you don't think it through all the way. And this person, they're looking for help because they're in a spot where they're acknowledging, because they're asking the question of like, I'm not sure this is good or not. What do I do? So their head's in the right place. They just either need to kind of refine their idea or, maybe broaden kind of the things that they want to put. A little more tea, broaden their potential solutions or change the problem, a la Captain Kirk and the Kobayashi Maru. Perkins says, when setting up a situation, you need to keep a reasonable logic to the reality of the world. It is okay to make things impossible. Players can still overcome the problem. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, Perkins, but it is how you define a kind of impossible and all this stuff is kind of dependent on the game you're playing. And I think the ethos of 5th edition is different than ours, I think, a little bit, And yeah, I see what you're saying. Hey, you have a lock, all the keys are missing or destroyed, you give players hints and explain. Sure. And there are other things you can do, break the lock off the doors, all that stuff. I totally agree. But I think a lot of adventure design is that kind of rod of 7 parts sort of thing, right? You we got to get part 1, you got to get part 2, you got to get part 3, put them together, you get 3 parts. So you just look at those. It's a trope. You just look at these things, how they go together, even though maybe it doesn't make sense. If somebody really wanted to just lose this thing, because a phylactery is different than, say, I don't know, what's something else, like to say the Holy Grail, right? So say Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, the Holy Grail. They've hidden the Holy Grail, but there is an idea in that flowing around there that you don't mean to lose it altogether. It needs to be preserved. It needs to be hidden from evil, but it might be that somebody needs it someday, right? It might be, it is meaningful, it is holy, it is a relic. So we're not just looking to just hide it for eternity. It needs to be protected and managed, kind of kept, but it needs to be in the world because the world might need it someday. And so you get these plots that move forward. So how do you do that? We need to keep it in the world, but we need to make it hard for people to get to, and that's that kind of like mystery school excuse me, sort of approach where you have to give hints, and then if you're initiated enough, you'll be able to put the hints together and you'll be able to follow the trail, get to the thing and do it. That makes sense. The problem is when you take that plot, if you will, that scenario, and now you're applying it to something that by all reason never needs to be found. If I'm a lich, I want to, I mean, the phylacteries can't be destroyed, so I do need to put it somewhere, keep it safe, keep it out of harm. So I can't chuck my phylacteries in the elemental plane of fire, but I certainly don't need to maintain it. As far as I know, you set up your phylactery, you put it somewhere, and then it just needs to be hidden. So if it is within my power to just seal it up in a ball of adamantium and then drop it in the bottom of the deepest ocean, I would do it. So why would you have vault and keys and other things? Now there might be other reasons. We don't know all the full context. Maybe there's other things in there that the lich feels like they might need, and so the phylactery's in there too. But the vault serves more purposes. I mean, I imagine something like that. There's more stuff in the vault. There's the phylactery. It's just one of those things you look and go, okay. In the case of these things, it makes sense because it's one of those items that we may need it someday, so we got to do that. But I'm never going to need my phylactery. I just need to make sure nobody gets to it. So that was kind of the source of my question. It says the rod of indeterminate amount of parts. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay, what else have we got here? So that was one. That was good. That was already 26 minutes. Look at that. Trying to find a more engaging assist check rules. I'm going to skip the assist check rules. 2-minute tabletop handbooks. Any good as one-shot adventures. I have no idea what that is. Ooh, here, this might work. Alternative combat systems. Let's take a look at this one. Oh, this is more of a question, but I'll give it a thumbs up. We'll read it and we can see what some of the comments, maybe they know more than I know. Alternative combat systems. This was posted to the subreddit Dungeon Masters by Numberless. I don't really enjoy combat in 5th edition. It's so much waiting around, although it does give people a chance to really shine when it is their turn. I'm planning roughly an 18 versus 18 fight for my party of 5 PCs allied with NPCs. Obviously, combat in that would take forever, so I was wondering if anybody had some suggestions for different methods to handle the situation or combat in general. Well, I think for the 18 versus 18, you can merge together. Basically, you're creating units. So instead of having 10 kobolds, you would have one kind of amalgamation creature that has basically the same hit points as the amount of kobolds and then does kind of the damage equivalent of that many kobolds versus you put them up against the other massive creatures. So if you had, say, the 10 Knights of Me versus these 10 kobolds, you can basically make or you can really just reduce it to 1-on-1. And then just when those hit points run out, instead of it being one creature going down, then it's 10. Something like that. I'm curious what other people are going to say because I don't think there's any. I'm sure people have third parties and homebrew that there's tons of mass combat sort of rules for 5th edition. I don't know any of them. I don't think any of the campaign books so far, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, have included any kind of mass combat. So I'm not sure. Oh, well, actually, look at that. Johan Yak or Johan Jack or Johan Jack. Says page 250, the DMG has rules for mob combat. Besides that, I wouldn't change the system without notifying my players. 5th edition is already pretty streamlined and faster than a lot of systems. I don't know that I would say that, Johan. I think it is streamlined in some things, absolutely. Faster than a lot of systems. I don't know. I don't know where I would put 5th edition in the speed category in terms of combat. I'm not sure I would put it on the speedy side of the spectrum, but that's just me. Michael Frager says, Into the Odd, just roll damage. Brian Smith says, side initiative for sure. I mean, Into the Odd, yeah, that I wouldn't just do something like, okay, you're just going to roll for damage in 5th edition. Or, I mean, I guess I want to talk to the players about it. Part of the thing comes with if you have 18 versus 18, and assuming the party is, say, 5, I think I would just I think I might even just do something like let the party fight whoever they're going to fight, and then the rest of it. What I've done before, let me back up, I guess. What I've done before when I was running something, I think it was 3.5, and my party it wasn't an 18 versus 18 fight, but the party was at the time was participating, or they were participating in this war in which they were part of a besieged community, castle under siege from some humanoids, things like that. What I did is instead of rolling them out with, so one of the things you could do, I think Matt Colville's done this in some of his earlier videos when he was doing more of his in-game streaming. He put the party in charge of different units, and he was kind of running true mass combat in some way. And maybe his, I forget his source book might probably have some mass combat rules. And he gave everybody sort of, you're in charge of these guys, you're in charge of those guys, and now we're gonna kind of do sort of a mass combat sequence here. And that's fine if you have the chops, your party has the desire to do some of that tactical or maybe even more, strategic view of this fight. Great. You can run that. What I did instead was the battle was all happening sort of cinematically around the party. And then whatever the party was doing, I kind of gave them objectives. I was like, well, you can do this, or you're there and you're asking the captain of the guard, Captain, what can we do to help? And the captain says, look, there are catapults over there in the west field. If you could destroy them somehow, that would save us. So the party would go out and destroy the catapults. And if they succeed in destroying them, then that would, the tide would start to turn in their favor. Whereas if they failed, then the tide would start to turn against them. And I would just have basically the microcosm of whatever the players were doing would be echoed in the macrocosm of the battle itself. And then at the end of the day, if the party succeeded, then they were able to turn enough of these key moments to save the day. If they didn't, then now we deal with the city being overrun. However, so and this is a much smaller fight. So I think you could just okay, 5 kobolds here, 5 guardsmen here. They're just gonna fight amongst themselves, and really the fight's just what the party's doing, and everything else can just kind of just be sort of in the background, if you will. Ian says, yeah, thanks. It's Kingdom and Warfare from MCDM. Definitely has Warfare use. Yeah, I actually have that book, and I've had it since is that the first one? Because I don't have the second one. Whatever the second one is, I don't have that one. So if this is the first one, I have it. If it's the second one, I don't. But either way, yeah, check out his source book. Perkins says, you get into skirmish melee, you can break 18 into blocks, keep track of morale for each group. I would break them into groups of 6 with 3 leaders. Once they drop a few, check to see if the group runs away. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I don't find 18 versus 18 I would necessarily need to break it up that much, but if it was a bigger fight, I would. It kind of depends. I guess it really depends on, maybe the groups would depend on how, we don't have any idea of what the components of the player's side are. Is it the party 5 and then they're 5s and 5s? Is it 10s? I'd probably just look at it and see, like, what are the discrete groups on the party size, and then break up the kobolds to suit. And then I could run the 5 that are whatever, the 5 individuals that are fighting the 5 PCs. I'll just run them like normal, and then the other ones can be in blocks. There's a ton of different ways to skin this cat. It's just a matter of what you feel comfortable with, what makes sense to you. Oh, Ian says Strongholds of Followers is the first book. It has an alpha version of Warfare rules. Okay, I have the first one. I don't have Kingdoms of Warfare. I should probably check it out at some point. Ryan Smith says 18 versus 18 would be skirmish, right? Probably any number of skirmish games could just snatch mechanics from. Use hit die, non HP, something for NPCs. Yeah, you could use. There's a ton. I think I actually have a bunch of wargaming books because there's some fascinating stuff in there. I'll have to break that out. And at Chainmail, you could do something. Battle System has some things as well. It starts to get into Battle System is more if you want to just abstract a lot of stuff out and just roll kind of one sort of set of rolls just to determine. I think it's either the whole battle or something you just kind of roll it and it's like, oh, this has happened kind of thing. Whereas if you want to play it out turn by turn, then something like Chainmail could work well. You could just kind of adjust your units. I think if it's just kind of a one-off, I feel like just kind of you could sort of go in sort of cinematic and just roll some dice, and that's what happens to the background, and then the party just takes care of business. But yeah, if you're comfortable with skirmish rules, absolutely, you're in the skirmish mode. I think, though, I mean, it's just one of those things, the way the game has changed. I did not have a wargaming background, but a lot of the folks, the original folks from the 70s did. So they would have had no problem either turning to Chainmail or, well, yeah, definitely Chainmail or even some other, as Brian Smith said, some other kind of gaming system, and then just playing it out real quick and going back. I feel like now most players are pretty far away from kind of wargaming stuff. And so they don't necessarily think to just hop to that and pick a different subsystem. The other thing that's maybe interesting is, especially with kind of a 5th edition, is how do you run spells, kind of 5e sort of D&D spells in the kind of skirmish warfare. Things get kind of tricky, I think, or at least there's a lot of edge cases. That's where I would want to, if I was going to run it kind of skirmish, I'd want to make sure I figured out, well, what spells does my party have access to, and how are they going to interact with the whatever, if I'm running it skirmish rules. That was from Dungeon Masters. Let's see, what else have we got here? Good stuff so far. I'm going to mute really quick because I think I have a cough coming on. Michael Fraker, does anyone have Delta's Book of War? I've actually had this on my list. This is not I don't have it digitally, I don't think. But yes, I have had it, and the reason why I'm holding it, I have it so close, is because I've been meaning to read it on stream one of these days. So, yes, we do have it. And it's right there. Maybe even next week. Maybe you've inspired me now to I've had it there staring at me when I put it in my kind of pile of things to do, since I now have a still working out the wrinkles, but I've got sort of a quasi-permanent setup for doing top-down stuff, so I can do more looks at things that I have that I have only in print copies, and that was kind of one of the ones that jumped up. Brian Smith says, I've got no wargaming roots, but there are so many light skirmish games now that seem to bridge the gap. Yeah, I think it's I think the issue, Brian Smith, is the awareness of them. I think that probably the big one. Because like I said, a lot of people coming to 5th edition find themselves wanting to run these kind of things and aren't even aware of the language to know, oh, is this a skirmish game? Is it what kind of, all these different sort of terms, they're not even aware of them. And then you have to find them. And then you have to do the work of, well, if my wizard's going to cast, I don't know, charm into this 10-man, this figure that's 10 kobolds, how does that interact? That kind of thing. There's a lot of those finagling that you have to do. I'm sure that there's, again, I don't have a ton of wargaming experience really at all. So I've been fascinated with the rules. I love reading them, and I think there's a lot because a lot of times some of the rules they interact with kind of campaign play and that domain play and setting up sandboxes and things. So that's kind of was where some of my interest came in, and just because it's also where the hobby arose out of, I've been sort of interested on that level. But I'm sure someone who's been around the skirmishing rodeo would be able to kind of probably pretty quickly set it up. But it's a different thing when you're coming from either no background at all or no background in those kind of games to just kind of jump into it. It's just a different beast with different assumptions, and just different ways of doing things. Then you have, and then of course that's just the GM. Then you have to kind of try to sell it, sort of explain it to your players who also don't have that background. It can be a lot. And it just might not be the natural thing that people jump to. Perkins says, keeping the time spent at the table quick, exciting, and focus on PC actions, leaving the battle in a bit of a fog. Yep, I think that's kind of what I lean to, at least the first time, is I just want to concentrate on what the party's doing. And then, and it is its own kind of literary thing, right? It's kind of that as above, so below sort of thing. What the party's doing affects the world. Your protagonist is crying and it's raining outside. They're sad, it's raining outside, that kind of thing. So the party is taking on these particular things they're doing, and then that just is reflected in the world around them. And it's just an easy way to make them feel like they're in this combat, because you can still narrate how things are happening all around them, and yet you're not really concerned with that stuff. You're letting the party sort of dictate, or their particular encounters dictate things. But like I said, there's a ton of ways to skin the cat. It's kind of about what kind of gaming you enjoy and what you're comfortable running. Perkins says they had 5 PCs counter 300 plus orcs when they were 5th level. They fought, but I wanted the battle to take less than an hour at the table. I put things in big strokes and followed the PC actions. Yep. And I think particularly, at least if I was one of those PCs, I would be trying to do something to end that as fast as possible. So I'd be looking like, if we got to fight these 300 plus orcs, where's the leader? Can we hit their command structure? What can we do? So I would definitely be trying to, take the head off of that beast as opposed to fight through it. So I think that kind of approach makes a lot of sense. All right, what else have we got? What do we got here? And as usual, folks, if you see something in here that you think is interesting and I pass over it, please call it out. I'm happy to back up and look at something. I'm here for you, as my father would say. A treasure hunting world. That's world building. Yeah, I'm gonna skip it. Skip it. Oh, here we go. See, DM Academy, I wish they had one of these that was more, or that they were more cross game, because it is very 5th edition focused. But you get some good stuff. So this one, posted by Gauge 96, non-combat encounters on a battlefield. I'm working on a high-level one-shot for the next time my regular DM needs a break, but I need some help coming up with interesting encounter ideas. The party is supposed to retrieve an object from some ruins on the banks of the River Styx, but the location will be the site of a major battle between demons and devils. The idea is that the party will need to make their way through the chaotic battlefield to reach the item before it's taken or destroyed. I'm struggling to think of obstacles and encounters that might come up on a battlefield that aren't just fight this group of demons. I would like to encourage some creative problem solving, since they will be level 15 and have lots of tools at their disposal. Any ideas? My first thought is to have a kind of a no man's land. Who's fighting? What is it? Demons and devils are fighting. I'm going to guess lots of magic. Think World War One. I think a movie like 1917, or that part where that scene in Wonder Woman when she runs across no man's land. Read up on no man's land. That between the two battle lines, there's some kind of massive, pitted, just horrible landscape. Maybe the river is in the middle of it, and now the party, they're not going to have to fight 15 demons or devils because those guys aren't there. They've all backed up. They're waiting as they're. In this case, we're replacing. You can really have a lot of fun with this, where magic is replacing artillery. Maybe there's some kind of tanks or battle engines. I think what was that Avernus I think had like battle engines or things like that. Some kind of war machines that are in this zone between the two lines, and the party's trying to skirt to get to somewhere in the middle. Could be a lot of fun, and that's probably how I would do it. And then it would just be there's obstacles, big craters, big pools of liquid. Maybe there is kind of a malfunctioning war machine there. Maybe there is a small. You could even have really almost social encounters with isolated demons or devils that are separated. Maybe they're trying to make deals. Could you help them get back to their line or help them do something? I'm not sure. Be interesting to think about if you were in this giant war. battlefield and you're a demon or a devil, what individually, what do you want? So if you came across one sheltered in, let's say, a crater from a magic artillery shell kind of thing, and you're hunkered down there, you jump in there to because the shells or whatever the spells are flying, the shell spells are flying, and you see some demon or devil there. What could that encounter look like? And if you're not going to fight each other, is there some kind of deals you can make? Could there be? I forget what that thing was. That kind of mythical spot that myth that came out of World War One. There was some area of in the no man's land that was kind of safe and everybody got together. I forget the name of it, but that you could even play with that idea that you get to some misty spot in the middle there, an island that's floating, that's in the middle of the river, that has some refugees from both sides that have kind of made an entente, a détente, a peace in there, and kind of what is that like? So I think there's really a lot of stuff. You don't have to have them just running into rogue troops unless that's what you want. And it seems like you don't want that. So that would be my picks. Oh, we got a bunch of stuff hit the chat. Hold on here. Let's see. Perkins asked if I use the World Anvil website. I actually have set up World Anvil. I had some grand ideas for using it, and I kind of fell down on my end. It is really, there's a lot going on. It has a lot. I'm not sure ultimately. I mean, I've paid for like one of the bigger license versions, and I should probably put it to use. I'm not sure ultimately if I just had the kind of programming admin chops to use it as opposed to something like just making a wiki of some kind, but it has a lot. It may be, I think it's really good if you want to get into there and work it, because you have to, at least you got to put in a lot of the information. You got to do all the groundwork and everything yourself. And that's kind of where I need to I need to have like a staycation, and I'm going to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to be home. I'm just going to be in my cave, my computer, and I'm going to get done a whole bunch of stuff that's on my list I need to get done. Then that's kind of one of them is to go back and get my World Anvil set up, because I wanted it to be somewhere where I could share a lot of kind of world building stuff and my campaign stuff. And I kind of started it and I just let it kind of fall. So I need to do that. So I think it's really good. I'm also going to look at Lore 20. That's a newer one that's come up. So look for that actually probably next week, Perkins. I'm going to look at Lore 20, which is another site, a newer site. It's a very small, I think it's just a single guy that put it together. And I think they just launched it recently, but I got some access to that. So I'm going to take a look at that as well. But I mean, there's no question that World Anvil is powerful in terms of what you can do. It's just, it's kind of like you're paying for sort of the hosting and the ease and the connectivity and the fact that it's specifically RPG focused, where I think if you could install some kind of wiki version on a server somewhere, you could probably do all the stuff that it does or get pretty close. But you're, I don't know how much the server would cost for whatever that's set up. I think wiki, like, so your kind of wiki setups are basically free, but you got to pay for servers. Then you got to do all that stuff yourself and do all the linkages. There's kind of like, you could do all the groundwork with, I think, some kind of off the shelf tools and fairly cheap, maybe even free servers, and do it yourself. Or you can subscribe to something like World Anvil that takes care of all that for you and just gives you a nice interface to do everything in. That's probably where I would be with it right now. But I have to go back in and figure out my World Anvil situation. Maybe I'll do it on stream. I'll stream some, just me filling in World Anvil stuff, because I need to do it. That might give me an excuse to do it. Caverna says, hey, Caverna, just found my channel and watched 2 videos and saw I'm streaming a great cow. Thanks very much. I kind of my tongue got twisted. I have great content here. Well, thank you very much, Caverna. I'm glad you found me. Welcome to the stream. Ryan Smith says, gotta have a chance to take control of some kind of bone and gore war machine to slam through a line or something. Yeah, that might be cool. Let's see. Perkins says, when dealing with demons and devils, I would have a huge horde of demons and a tight elite group of devils, and it would become a massive battlefield like a storm. That's definitely one way to run it. Ryan Smith says, maybe a wounded devil offers help for your assistance, getting them to their allies. Yeah, that's the interesting thing, because with the way it goes, right? I mean, like if the devil goes back to their lines, would they just not get, eaten, absorbed, demoted? So you end up with an interesting situation where the devil has failed in whatever they're doing because they're stranded, they're wounded in no man's land. They'd like to make a deal. Maybe they can't go back, or they'd have to do something. They'd have to really like engineer something heroic, or, heroic, quote unquote, to get back. So it puts them in an interesting spot, which is where you could really have some fun ideas and fun encounters. Fergus says they were excited to use World Anvil, but they ran into the same situation as I did. Would need a regular weekly group to make it have value. Yeah, I think definitely in terms of the wiki stuff. I think with anything like that, you really need to have a group consistently putting stuff in, and you need to have a consistent game. You need to have consistent content. And yes, if you have a small group or small, whatever, like there's a lot of things that, if you don't kind of fit the scale, it might not work. Now they have different levels and things, but yeah, because it is a lot of work to at least get going. I think you could probably get up to some amount of entries, and then it's more or less manageable on sort of a session by session basis. What's new, what's changed, whatever. But it's kind of getting to that what's the word, that kind of critical mass sort of thing, depending on how big your world is and what's going on. And then is it worth it to put all that stuff in there if maybe my players don't use it, or I don't ultimately use it? Because here I'm putting on World Anvil, but I've got it all in OneNote, and for me, when I'm on the game, I'm going to OneNote. So then why do I need to duplicate the information to World Anvil just to say it's on World Anvil, right? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Michael Frager says there's a new relatively free game screen app. Ooh, what's it called, Michael Frager? Send me the name. And Bryce Smith, getting back to this one, says, and would you even want to make a deal with the devil? Well, that's the thing, is like, what could the devil offer you? Remember, we have some goal. They have to, the party's supposed to retrieve an object for some ruins. So maybe the devil knows something about the ruins or the object or both. This is where there could be a lot of intrigue. But then let's say the devil needs to, I can see the devil saying, listen, I know, and who knows if the devil's telling the truth, right? But this is in kind of, I'm assuming this is in their kind of realm. So you have to at least listen to the offer. The devil might say, listen, I need, or he says, the devil says, okay, you've either revealed to me, or I know, or I can intuit, or whatever, that, okay, you're looking to get to the ruins of so-and-so. All right. I know where it is, and I know a way to get there that's kind of relatively free of harm or whatever, but I can't stay here forever, and I can't go back like this, because if I go back just with my forked tail between my legs, they're just going to rip me to shreds or kill me, demote me to an imp, whatever it is. They're not going to let me do it. So I need a prize to go back with. I need to show I did something. So I'm going to need the head of some kind of demon lord, and I'm going to need that. And if you bring me the head of the demon lord, you bring me that head, then I got you covered. Something like that would work, right? Because I can't see the devil just walking back saying, sorry, guys, I goofed. And I can't see the devil wanting to just sacrifice themselves, throw their infernal life away just because they're stuck. So something like that I could see would work. And of course, then you can decide how much of this is the devil telling some kind of truth, or was it trickery, or whatever. You could have all kinds of fun and excitement. Now, for a one shot, I wouldn't want to get too involved, because you don't want the side mission to take you away from the main hustle. But it could be an interesting little thing that could be a detour if you wanted to whatever the ruins are. Need some more tea here. Oh, Master Screen, it's called. Okay, I'll check out Master Screen. Actually, we'll check out Master Screen in a minute. Let me just see if anyone's got any more comments about this one. Perkins says the old Planescape Blood Wars sourcebook has a bunch of motivations and hooks, useful for dealing with this type of battlefield situation. Cool. So I'll have to check that out. I don't know if there's all that old stuff that hasn't gotten reprinted yet. I don't mean reprinted. I mean converted up to 5th edition. Though maybe someone's done it, but I'm fine with using old school stuff. Obviously, look at my channel. But I don't have that one. That sounds cool. Brian Smith says, haha, those silly old devils. Sorry, pals. I had a big whoopsie out there. Yep, they did. All right, let me check. Called Master Screen. Let's go see this Master Screen business. I need to switch to DuckDuckGo. I keep meaning to, and then I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna add it. I gotta do that. All right, I'll do that later. Thought I could just hit a button. Oh, that's not it. Old link I had. Let's see. What is this? What's it called? Master Screen. All right, let's check it out. This is called, I'll put the link, called Master Screen, the ultimate tabletop wizard. there's the link. I put it in the chat. I will put it in the show notes as well, but it's just https:// master screen, all one word, .app. A-P-P. Perkins says, I always struggle with presenting evil in my games. I tend to Disney it a bit because it can get dark fast. Yes, it is. That is a hard thing to balance. I think, especially for a one shot, I would just lean into kind of being Disney sort of fun, evil, and not like truly evil kind of thing. But yeah, I agree. It is hard. You want to, if you don't have, if that's not the tone of your campaign. Yep. All right. So we got, here's the home screen, which has got some, I like the little animation here. I'm going to play this. Shall we play it? It's going to go, it's a YouTube video. All right. I'll skip it. Can I play it on mute? Let me see here. Cause I think, all right, I'm only play it. Oh, it's going to take me to YouTube. All right. Well, oh, come on. How long is this thing? 2 minutes? Nah, I'm not going to watch a 2-minute video. Watch it later. Let's just see what else I have. Okay. Ultimate Tabletop Wizard, a master screen is the ultimate set of tools for running tabletop or online roleplay campaigns and managing intricate fictional worlds. Runs on every device without any downloads, built by nerds and free for everyone. Great. And their main bullet points: offline first. Only you own your data. We store nothing in the cloud. All your content can be saved as markdown files on your hard drive. So there you go. Folks who love markdown, this has got you covered. It's system agnostic. Use master screen with any role-playing system like D&D, Pathfinder, Warhammer, or create your own entirely. We already saw that it's markdown based. Great. You can use master screen on top of other tools like Obsidian. So if folks have got Obsidian or some of those other ones, that's also great. Advanced tech. It's unobtrusive, lightweight, and familiar interface that can run on any device without any installs or downloads. Built by nerds. We know what dungeon masters need because we run games by ourselves. That sounds... Did they mean by ourselves? I run games by myself. What? Am I playing alone? Anyhow, new features and updates every month. It's entirely free, unlimited content, no restrictions. Everything is provided free of charge and supported by the community. We have a quote from Twitter user Dominic Levitsky. The best thing that happened at tabletop gaming in a long time. All right, let's see some screenshots. Or actually, these are like little GIFs, little video clips. So here's someone's entering in a magic item. They got all these tables. They're going, that great. They got some simulated dice. Oh, that's not. Ooh, I like that. That reminds me very much of the Roll20 Fantasy Grounds. That one's good. Ooh, I like that. I like that very much. Now they just dropped a whole bunch of dice. Flexible templates, new entry, new template. Ooh. Caverna says they use Obsidian. Well, Caverna, you could then drop this kind of as a front end, I guess, for Obsidian. I mean, they've got D&D 5e. I suppose we'd have to put in, I guess, with the community, hopefully. Well, you got 3D battle maps. I mean, granted, very simple shapes, but still. I have no idea what those triangles mean. This is like they're fighting in the land of Tron. Get your life cycle going. Light cycle, not life cycle. Fully interactive 3D map. All right. Instant search. Brian Smith says they're not advanced enough to use this. Brian Smith, if you can wrap your mind around Markdown, which is not difficult, then you should be able to do this. This seems really cool. I'm going to have to muck about with this. Combat Manager. Oh, nice. So you can kind of set up your spacing. Oh, this. I'm digging this. I'm digging this. I don't know if I love these triangle things, but I guess it's just a very simple grid. I have to mess around with it, but that is cool. Let's see what other things we can get here. Okay, that's it for there. Is this the overview? Is this all on this page? Let's see the kind of community stuff. Brian Smith, you never mess with Markdown? Super easy. Oh, it's on Discord. All right, I'm not going to delve into Discord yet. Well, I think I'll have to do a video. I'm going to have to figure something out. Brian Smith says, what's the benefit of Markdown? Well, basically, Brian Smith, it takes plain text and uses syntax to embed formatting in the plain text. So ultimately, you just have a plain text file. And then what happens is you add different characters and things in there, kind of control characters, if you will, but they're still just made of regular text characters, just how you format them. And then it allows you to do things like add tables and have links and lists, but it's all very human readable. In other words, to make a list in Markdown, you just put a asterisk and then a space, and then you start typing your list items. So very super simple. Probably the most complicated ones are links, but once you get the links and images and tables, tables are very easy. You just kind of put lines and underneath, you just kind of set up a little bit, and it looks like a table in plain text, and then it gets formatted as a table. Links and images work a little differently. You basically put, if you've used Reddit, if you've ever put links into Reddit, because Reddit uses Markdown, very easy. Hashtags are for for headers, and you use asterisks around things for italicizing or bolding. And once you get the hang of it, it's very easy. But the key thing is that you can write Markdown in anything, any plain text editor. You can write Markdown. Then you just have to throw it into something that will either display the Markdown with all the formatting or convert it into HTML or whatever you want. So it's really powerful and it's easy to use. You just need to learn those little tricks, or you get an editor that allows you to do it in more of a WYSIWYG way. Kind of like Obsidian gives you sort of a halfway between sort of WYSIWYG, but also the Markdown, you can put it in manually, and then you can kind of, you're off to the races. But it's not there's no proprietary formatting or anything. So everything is just all plain. Right, so it says, that seems cool. They use Google Docs, and it makes a lot of sense to me and does the same. Well, I think that the thing is about this is nice, is this is basically adds that layer on top of Markdown with all all your role-playing stuff in there, which I don't know, in Google Docs, can you set it up to have all this battle maps and dice rolling and everything on top of it easy? I mean, that's cool. I don't know much about Google Docs, but the fact is that you can use this on any device. You don't need to log in anything. It's not stored in the cloud. It's there. I mean, I would probably want to store my Markdown files somewhere in the cloud. That way, one of my devices, and I can transfer it easily from my phone to my iPad to my my laptop. But other than that, you're not dependent on anything, which is cool. Ian says there's an open market here, so it could be good with some community support. Oh, cool. Brian Smith says WYSIWYG. Sorry, Brian Smith. WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, which ends up being abbreviated a lot as WYSIWYG. There you go. Ian got me. Ian got me there. But Brian Smith, the way you spelled it there makes it sound like it's some kind of, someone needs to make a, where's Terrence? We need a drawing of a monster, some kind of monster that's a WYSIWYG. Oh, that's good. That is good. They just use a Jamboard. Yeah, I think I don't know about the collaboration between players with this, but yeah, I would totally just use this for all my GM facing, all my stuff, which is cool because then I can have all my players saving throws or saving throws or their roll under stuff. So if I wanted to do kind of that passive, I don't want them to roll, but I want to roll for them kind of thing. I can have it all instead of having to put it in Discord and do all that. I can just tap my button in here. That was really neat because that dice rolling, where is that again? That one I almost simulated dice, because being able to have the damage there and just being able to roll it. I'm coming from me, right? I'm someone that I've seen this in streams when I've peeked in on somebody doing something on Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds where they've done that, but I've never had that capability myself because I don't use those things. So having it here in a way that I can use seems really neat because I can just write all my damages and all kinds of my dice mechanics in there and then just have it do it for me without having to grab, copy, paste, or format it for a robot or do whatever. Very cool. Ian says WYSIWYG sounds like a fairy name. It does indeed. Let's see. Perkins says, I might want to check out the ICRPG VTT for presenting a map. I think it's free, but you need a Patreon access. Aha. Is ICRPG, is that index card RPG, Perkins? Because it's on my list of things to check out. Caverna says, it works really great for weirdos like me that play solo. Good vibes. I agree. Cool. Well, I will definitely need to download, or I don't know, whatever it is to do this. I'm not sure how to install it. I don't even see anything for how do you install it. Or you just launch it? Should I launch it? All right. Creating new entries. Okay, so I'm not going to, since we're already at the hour, I'm not going to get into it now. But I see you just launch it in the browser, then I guess you just download it. And they do have a Patreon. I'll check it out, the Patreon, just to see, give them some love. So their Patreon there at patreon.com/masterscreen app. They've got $3, $5, and a $15 membership levels. Let's see. Now they get a Discord rare rank and some Patreon exclusive templates. If you want some more templates, you've got it. I'm curious as to what templates they have, but we don't see those. I'll have to check out the Discord. I'll join the Discord and fiddle with it later on, see what kind of people are working on. Maybe I'll put in like put on my list if I can figure out how to make it work, or just see how it works, and maybe I'll see if I can make like a really quickie. Maybe it's pretty easy to make like a BX template. I don't know. We'll see. Perkins says, Index Card RPG by Hank of Runehammer. His design philosophy is keep it simple and not overdone on features. I like that philosophy. I do want to check it out, Perkins. It is on my list. I just haven't gotten around to it. So yeah, that's how I knew the acronym, because otherwise I get so confused and discombobulated with all the different abbreviations and things when I see them. What's the one that was throwing me off for the longest time? Was it? I don't know. Was it Low Fantasy Gaming? No, that one actually sticks in my mind pretty well. I don't remember. Anyhow, I got that one in mind. Oh, Perkins says they're doing solo OSC just to be playing. Nice. Perkins, I'd love to hear your solo tweaks at some point. Maybe you can send them to me. What kind of solo tools you're using. We'll have to cover that another time, because, ladies and gentlemen, it is the bottom of the hour, so I have to run. If you could give a thumbs up on your way out, that would be awesome. I see a couple of people just joined. Sorry, you're catching it at the end, but the good news is you can just zip back over the beginning and watch in full. You can learn about WYSIWYGs and Master Screen, and talking about demons and devils, adventure taking place during a demon and devil war, and some guy who's a furbolg with a cloak. Had some good stuff in there. If you could give a thumbs up on your way out, that'd be awesome. If you found yourself in here and you like the stuff and you aren't subscribed to the channel, if you subscribe, that'd also be awesome. I do have Patreon and channel memberships if you feel like supporting my efforts in other ways. There's that stuff as well. But other than all of that, as I'm recording this on a Friday, I want to wish everybody a wonderful, happy weekend. Stay safe, stay gaming, keep on trucking, everybody. And I will talk to you later. Bye, all.